What's up, Valley Creek students, and welcome to Student Circles. You're in the right place at the right time because we just kicked off 60 days of rest, joy, and relationships, and we believe that God has all of that and so much more for you this summer. So think about this for a minute. What if God has a better way for you to experience summer this year? In fact, we're gonna declare right now that this will be a summer of rest, joy, and relationship for you. So lean in. To get us started down this path, I just want to ask the question, how's your soul? Do you feel at rest? Not did you get enough sleep rest, but are you living free from anxiety, doubt, fear, and depression? Are you living free? Is your soul at rest? If not, let's listen in together and find it for ourselves.
There's actually only one place that your soul can find rest. Truly, my soul finds rest in God. Many of us are waiting for the circumstances outside of us to change before we'll experience rest, but in reality, it's the Jesus inside of us that brings us to his rest in God. If you found yourself waiting for the circumstances to change, that's not where rest originates from. Rest originates from the inside, not the outside, from the soul, not the circumstances. In fact, you don't need to rest from your life, you need to rest for your life, getting into what Jesus has for you, getting into what he's trying to speak to you, inside rest. And that's why you could see these people in some really hard situations. Have you ever known somebody in a really difficult situation and you look at them and you're like, that's amazing, man. Their peace just seems so supernatural. It's really hard and it's heartbreaking. And then you'll talk to them and you'll be so inspired by how they talk and how they sound and how they engage their life. It's supernatural. It's so impressive. It's inspiring because their souls are finding rest in God, not outside of him. In Jesus, not outside. So the question is, how is your soul? And the reason that that's an important question is because your soul finds rest in God. We're supposed to love the Lord, our God, with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. So catch it. When your heart is filled with the kingdom, your soul will be at peace, your mind will be at rest, and your body will be filled with strength. Heart, soul, mind, and strength. It's all the ways that we express and experience the love of God. So the question, how's your soul, is a really, really important question. In fact, that's a working definition for rest. Rest is when your heart and your mind are filled with God's kingdom, and so your soul is at peace. True rest, real rest, is when your heart and your mind are filled with God's kingdom and your soul feels at peace. Or to put it another way, you'll rest in God when God rests in you. You'll rest in your life when God rests in you. You'll rest in your family when God rests in you. You'll rest your anxious mind when God rests in you. You'll rest from trying to strive and perform when God rests in you. You'll rest in God when God rests in you. Because rest comes from the inside, not the outside.
In fact, write this down. Isaiah 26:3, it tells us that God is the author of rest, that he's the one who gives it to us. It says, you will keep him in perfect peace, whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you. So if that's true, why do we often feel like we can't ever find it then? Let's keep listening in together.
There's many times we want to try to find rest from outside instead of inside. But what you have to catch here is that your mind, focused and steadfast on King Jesus, enthroned in your heart, is the place that you experience true rest. In fact, in the Old Testament, they knew that when a king was on his throne, the kingdom was at peace. Whenever the kingdom was enthroned, when he was hanging out at the palace, that means that the kingdom was at peace. Why? Because he wasn't riding out to fight battles out there, going to war out there. So can I just tell you, when the king is enthroned in your heart, you will be kept at perfect peace. When the king is on his throne in your life, in your mind, in your heart, your kingdom will be at rest. Why? Because there are no enemies out there. There are no battles to fight. There are no wars left to be won. King Jesus is the victor of all of those things. And so the problem is not that the king isn't enthroned. The problem is we want to try to steal the throne. We want to enthrone our own selves, our own lives, our own decision making, our own kingdom on the throne of our hearts. And then we find ourselves riding out to war and to fight battles that only King Jesus can fight and win. And then we wonder why our lives don't feel restful. And that's exactly why Jesus invites us to find rest only in him. Look at what it says here in Jeremiah. Stand by the roads and look and ask for the ancient paths, the ways of our spiritual fathers, the people of faith, the way of love and joy and peace, the way of righteousness, peace and joy, the way of faith, hope and love, the ancient paths. The old way that Jesus laid out for us, the narrow road that leads to a wide life. Stand by the roads, look for those ways. Look for those ways to find rest where the good way is and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk in it. Isn't that so like us? Isn't that so like how we think about it sometimes? We have this really clear path forward and we're like, oh no, we're good. I don't need that. But in reality, the only place to find rest for your souls are the ways of God, the ancient paths, the good way that he lays out for us.
So where have you been trying to find rest apart from God? Have you been looking for it online? In a friend group that you really want to be accepted in? Money, image, a relationship you think will fill you? You can't do it without the King on his throne. And when you learn to rest in God, you'll find the rest of God. So let's choose to do that this summer. And if you're wondering how, here's a few ways to help you find the rest that God has for us. I want you to write these down. The first one is humility. Everybody say humility. Humility is recognizing that everything you have, everything you are, comes from God. Psalm 23, 1-3 says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul and he guides me along the right paths for his name's sake." And the question we have to answer is, are we willing to be made to lie down? Sometimes we are always go, 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 but the good shepherd knows when to make us stop and rest. And I feel like so many times we want rest, but when God tries to make us lay down, tries to lead us there, we keep finding other things to do when we never actually find rest. And instead, we discover even more anxiety, even more fear, even more worry, more uncertainty, and we strive and struggle and never seem to rest. What is he asking you to surrender to him, to let go of, to find rest? And will you let Jesus make you lie down this summer? Because rest requires humility. And if you're gonna rest this summer, it also requires gratitude. Everybody say gratitude. Gratitude is choosing to be grateful for what you do have and not complaining about and focusing on what you don't have. In fact, this is what often steals our rest. When we focus on what we don't have, we often strive to get and we worry about and stress about and spend our time and energy on, and it becomes a recipe for a loss of rest. What if we just chose to be grateful this summer for what we do have and find some rest? And the last thing is just margin. Everybody say margin. If we keep living life on the edge, we'll eventually fall off. We need to be intentional about creating space for rest, space for relationships, space to encounter Jesus and walk in our kingdom purpose. Think about all the people that you interact with who don't know Jesus and they don't know rest. If we don't have margin, they will never experience that from us the way God intended them to. And if we don't create margin, we won't experience that the way God intended us to. We're hope carriers. But when we don't have rest for our own souls, it's super hard to have margin to be a harbor of hope for someone else. If you don't have margin, you say things like, I don't have anything to give to bless that person, or I would, but I don't have enough time, or I'm too busy. And if you find yourself saying those types of things often, this is your invitation to ask Jesus to teach you how to rest. We need margin if we're gonna experience rest. Everybody say no.
No! No! No!
Did you know it's okay to say no to the things that the world offers us if it doesn't align with what God offers us? Not only is it okay, it's a good thing.
No, 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 no.
In fact, it's almost impossible to find rest if you don't. Rest is when your heart and your mind is filled with God's kingdom, so your soul is at peace. And it's not a one-time thing. Rest is an everyday thing. So, how's your soul? Do you need rest? Jesus wants you to have it. He wants you to live from it. So let's take some time at our tables and let's talk about it together.